Hello, this is the AI Lab. Today it's my pleasure to welcome Martin Senftleben. Martin is Professor of Intellectual Property Law and Director at the Institute for Information Law, IVIR, at the University of Amsterdam. His activities focus on the reconciliation of private intellectual property rights with competing public interests of a social, cultural, or economic nature. He publishes extensively on these topics and lectures across the globe. The reason? An article entitled Win-Win: How to Remove Copyright Obstacles to AI Training while Ensuring Author Remuneration, and Why the European AI Act Fails to Do the Magic. Let's hear what Martin has to say. So, Martin, looking at the AI Act, can you explain why the EU's current approach to AI training and copyright might hinder both innovation and fair remuneration for authors?
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to explain that point. So I think in general, we can say what policymakers try to do in this space where we try to reconcile AI innovation with traditional copyright goals is, first of all, well, of course, we want the best AI systems and we want the least biased AI systems. And that would be the central goal of AI innovation. But now, when we look at the AI Act in combination with the 2019 Copyright in the Digital Single Market Directive, I think it's fair to say that the regulation puts a heavy burden on AI training by requiring to take into account rights reservations, the so-called opt-outs. And then also there are the transparency obligations where AI developers have to explain what type of resources they have used and submit information about this to the AI office. And then we have rules saying that it doesn't matter where the AI training took place, it always hits you the moment you enter the EU market. So we have quite a couple of heavy regulations that put a burden on AI training, so on the development phase. And then it's quite clear that, first of all, you might not get the best AI systems if you put all these burdens on the AI training process. And also the moment you allow right holders to opt out and to remove certain resources from training, then of course you no longer know whether you get the least biased AI systems because certain knowledge resources are just not available. And instead of high quality content for AI training, you may have to use content of, let's say, lesser quality from the perspective of a broad spectrum of literary artistic expression. And then you could say, well, perhaps these burdens are acceptable as long as they lead to a well-functioning system for remunerating authors and creative industries. But my fear is that the system now becomes so complicated, also for individual authors, for instance. How do you opt out? Is it sufficient that you opt out on your personal web page if you are a photographer, or do you have to opt out on each and every online platform where some of your photographs might be available? Is it sufficient that your collecting society opts out for you, or do you have to do it yourself, and so on? So there are all these questions, and there are groups who don't have the same questions, and that's, a bit making it a bit oversimplified. That's the big industry. The big industry knows to find itself. So the big AI industry entering into negotiations with big owners of content repertoires. But if licensing deals are concluded at that level, it's not clear whether individual authors will also benefit from the extra revenue streams that are then flowing between one big industry branch to the next one. Because the simple fact that a big creative industry rights holder receives some extra money doesn't mean that this money is passed on to the individual authors really doing the creative work. So these are the concerns.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you for highlighting the practical aspect, I would say, of rolling out all of these obligations. But there is something positive. Your paper starts with win-win in the title. So what is your alternative proposal for ensuring that authors are compensated without stifling AI development And how does that approach differ from the EU's input-focused approach?
Yeah. Well, as I have just explained, the EU, I think, places quite heavy burdens on the AI training and development phase. So my starting point is to say, if we imagine a regulation that leaves this development phase totally unencumbered by copyright burdens. So basically, you give lots of freedom in that area for AI developers to use all the resources that they think are necessary for building the best and the least biased AI systems, and then generating money later on. So once we have these fully developed, high potential AI systems, and these systems are brought to the market, that's the moment where also the developers will seek to recoup their investment to get the money back. And then the moment they are offered in the marketplace, the regulator can still step in and say, okay, now you are offering this AI product, these AI services in the marketplace, and now you are obliged to pay a certain percentage of the revenues that you have and to pass that on to the creative industry and to individual authors and performers. So without using legal terminology here, you could say you place a tax, a burden on the AI systems, not at the development stage, but at the moment where they are exploited in the marketplace. And then the money finally flows back in the form of compensation to the creative industry and individual authors.
So looking at that output-based approach, how do you see that output-based remuneration system working, and why do you think that it will better balance than the interests of creators, AI developers, and society as a whole?
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly speaking, there is, of course, an important intermediary necessary for then redistributing the money. From a European perspective, it's quite easy to propose that this should be collecting societies, because in the European Union and also many other European countries, we have a very well-developed system of collective rights management in the area of copyright. I fully understand that in several other regions, the question is whether comparable systems can be developed or whether collecting society systems are fit for that purpose. But let's assume they are, then collecting societies can play a central role here. So they would receive the payments. And then within the collecting societies, the discussion is necessary how to redistribute the money. I think that is something that we also know from other lump sum payment regimes like private copying levies and so on. I'm not saying it's an easy task, but it is manageable. And in the case of AI output, you can also use data from the systems itself, like to which extent is a certain style, a certain genre prominent in prompts that users enter. What type of AI output is generated, and to which extent does it resemble certain pre-existing human works and creations? What is the market share on the more general market for literary artistic expression and so on? So I think there are parameters that we can use in order to find the right redistribution mechanisms for the collected monies. And then another point with the collecting societies is that traditionally the repartitioning schemes have a split between money that is directly given to individual authors and money that is given to the industry. So the moment we channel the money through a collecting society, we have a guarantee that a certain percentage of the money will directly reach the individual authors and performers and will not stay at industry level exclusively.
Thank you. That's very clear. I'm not sure that everyone shares your enthusiasm about collecting societies in every country in the EU. Let's say there again, there might be some differences from one country to another in terms of their scale and scope of representation, let's say. But yes, I believe that AI and society merits, and authors and creators merit to have a system that functions and that for them, not just for the big industry. So let's hope that someone reads your paper and finds it inspiring. Thank you so much for your contribution, Martin.
Thank you.